The cruelty of corruption. What is the perceptions of the different social ranks on the concerning matter of corruption? Aims of project. This project aims to share and discover the insight and perception of Australians people's different cultures and social ranks on corruption, and how far their knowledge spans out. The main goal is not to expose those who avoid and ignore corruption, but to understand how it may benefit them. Would also like to discover the non-beneficial process that corruption has on people of the lower social and economic ranks, and investigate these problems in Australian society that have become more and more prevalent in the past months. Context. There's been research on corruption in Australia and how it affects our score in the corruption index, such as how Australia has become lower in our ranking in the past few years. This does not seem like an issue, coming 11th from 7th. An article by kkkk 2021 gave insight on this affects Australia and how this can become a preventable issue. If Australian politicians do not fix this situation, it could lead to a lower rank. Other scholarly articles gave me more insight into how people do notice corruption but fail to see there is illegal corruption that still occurs that is not illegal, but most would consider this unethical and unfair. Most people do not realize or notice this type of corruption, usually associate corruption with organized crime and beneficial gain. The perceptions of corruption can be directly related to the culture that surrounds us. As a culture, we determine what corruption is and the moral thinking behind it. Different cultures have different ideas of corruption, and there is no one definitive answer. Culture has a big part in how we view corruption, the undermining issues. Persons. My question is based upon the perception of the average person and different social ranks in society. The secondary research that I discovered explains the importance of a person's perception, as high levels of perception can be more devastating than corruption itself. This shows relevance to my PIP as I aim to discover how perception is manipulated by authority. Society. The immoral basis of corruption can be seen all through society, and its effects upon us. Australia's ranking from the CPI, Corruption Perception Index, went down to 11th, as this seems to be an irrelevant issue. kkkk 2021 juxtaposed that and creates relevance as of the increasing risk of corruption can stow upon us, leading to a decrease in economic value in Australia, affecting Australians in lots of ways. Society determines how we create punishment for corruption and how we solve it. Time. The normalization of the perceptions of corruptions through time has dramatically affected the definition. The normalization of legal corruption does not seem to propose an issue to citizens because of the media's climatization of corruption. Reading through the literature on the perceptions of corruption, we can see through time that corruption creates a different definition for itself. Time creates normalization in subject that should not be normalized. Authority. Authorial figures have the power to create corruption or call out corruption. The beneficial gain that politicians can have from corruption, like financial gain, favouring their political standpoint, or creating more power to their name. kkkk 2021 supposes that there needs to be a test of integrity, and people with this power to call out. Integrity is what keeps countries running, especially when it comes to persons in power. Summary of literature review. The perceptions of corruption can have many ideas and themes behind them. Authority, social status, and definitions are the three major themes reviewed. kkkk 2021 suggests that there needs to be a test of integrity and proposition and plans for an integrity agency. Without policies in place, it could escalate. The lack of education and knowledge of perception leads to uneducated persons and lower social economic status peoples being exploited by corruption, legal or illegal. The literature is flawed in the opinions of the public, with most of its research coming from data analysis and content analysis, losing my question of perceptions. Questionnaire. The reasoning behind a questionnaire is to discover people's perceptions of corruption. The way that I will determine who takes participation in the questionnaire is to gather a mature audience. A more mature audience has been exposed to things like corruption, has a deeper understanding of corruption. Recruiting participants for the subject will be accessible through social connection by parents and friends. Content analysis will allow me to gather the information that could be seen as unethical, fixing the gap of missing information, creating a more fuller and more knowledgeable personal interest project. I'll be searching for literature that aims to discover the perception of different people and their social ranks and how this affects their perception of corruption. Primary research that would be hard for me to do, and the effects of corruption. Google Scholar or the State Library will be sufficient for the technology that I need for content analysis. Ethical issues. My question aims to discover the different social ranks and perception of corruption. This creates an issue that affects the ethics of my project. This could affect the ethics as it could offend or come off as rude in a questionnaire to ask about social rank or social economical status. I'll combat this issue by using secondary research as a replacement and doing content analysis on the literature. This will avoid offending people in my questionnaire, creating a safer and more friendly questionnaire. The end.